Vaughan Public Library's program about thyroid disease. My name is Rachel. I'm the health literacy specialist here at Vaughan Public Libraries. I'm so pleased to introduce our guest speaker here. This session is presented by advocate and author Dana Trentini, author of Your Healthy Pregnancy with Thyroid Disease, which is a book that we do have in our library. Dana is also the founder of the website hypothyroidmom.com that has amassed a following of 1.5 million people worldwide. Dana is a Canadian who lived in New York City for 17 years and who just moved back to Canada. So please welcome Dana back to York Region with me. Dana, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to speak to Canadians. I have been 17 years in New York City and my following is I would say 95% American. So the conversations always go towards American issues. So it's just so exciting to be here. I've been living here now as a hypothyroidism patient for a couple of years since I've moved. And so I'm so excited. It's different. I think the challenges are similar. They're a little bit different also. So I'm excited to talk about sort of how they're similar and how they're different. So I'm so excited to be here. So if we have everyone ready? Do you think I can get started?
I think it's okay if you get started. Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep letting people into the program, but I think it's fine if you start your presentation.
All right, right. So what I want to do is I want to share my screen because I put some slides together. So let me just share my screen. Share. All right. So you tell me if you can see my screen. Let me just get it set up the way I want it set. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen, yep.
All right, great. All right, so making the most of every thyroid pill. This topic, if I had to say 1.5 million followers at this point, I started it in 2012. I had miscarried a baby. I was severely hypothyroid, knew something was terribly wrong with me. I was seeing doctors in New York City with the wards on their walls. You know, they were from Ivy League medical schools. They should have been able to figure out what was going on with me. When I miscarried, I realized that there was so much that patients don't know that they need to know so that they can be advocates for themselves. And if I had to say what one thing I should have done differently from the very start was to take my thyroid pills the right way. I was never instructed exactly how to take them. You think it's really simple, you swallow it. What more can there be? Well, there actually turns out to be a lot more to the story. So let's start with the thyroid gland. I had no idea when I was a little girl that butterflies would all of a sudden be incredibly important to me. You know, the butterfly is the shape of the thyroid gland. It's at the base of your neck. And one wouldn't expect it to affect every organ of the body. And yet it is able to affect every organ of the body, from the top of your head to the tips of your toes. The Thyroid Foundation of Canada estimates there are 1 in 10 Canadians that suffer from a thyroid disorder. What always disturbs me the most, no matter what country in the world you look up the prevalence, always there's an indication that at up to 50%, and in America it's up to 60%, are unaware of their condition. Now, that baffles the mind that there could be 50% of the population of thyroid patients or thyroid dysfunctional patients that should be treated that are not realizing that they even have a condition to be treated. The reason is that our symptoms are very vague. They can be put down to getting older. In my case, it was that I was a new mom, that I was pregnant, that you, what else do you expect? You have children, you are a working mom with young children, you should be tired, you should be gaining weight, you should be losing your hair because you're very stressed. So all of the symptoms that can come along with it they can be passed off as just normal parts of aging or normal parts of a very busy, stressful life. And so I think that would explain why there are so many people walking around that are unwell. And I was born in Canada, in Toronto. I lived most of my teenage years in Markham, so York Region, Vaughan. These areas are so wonderful to me. And when I was here, I believe that I had symptoms of hypothyroidism since I was a teenager. I had very heavy menstrual periods, cramping. I had dry skin. I had constipation. I had fatigue. I had sometimes mental, lack of clarity, maybe even attention issues at times. And no one would have expected a teenage girl to have hypothyroidism. But puberty is a common time for both girls and boys to develop a thyroid condition because our sex hormones and our thyroid hormones, they're connected together. So you can imagine puberty, as well as pregnancy, as well as menopause. These are the common times in a woman's life when she's particularly vulnerable to either trigger a new thyroid condition or to worsen the one that she already has. Those of you, if you've lived with this for decades, and I would encourage you to look back at your life. When did it start? Did it start at a time when there was a sex hormone changes? You can't imagine the number of women that come to me that have just had a hysterectomy, that boom, they get hypothyroidism, and they're writing to me to say, oh my goodness, I don't know what happened to me. Now all of a sudden I am menopausal and I am severely hypothyroid. It's really not surprising given that connection together. So what I always wonder about when I think about people with hypothyroidism is how much the gut matters. You see, the president of the American Thyroid Association, Dr. Antonio Bianco. Now, you have to remember that I started Hypothyroid Mom when I was living in New York City. The American Thyroid Association was the main association I was reading about. And they were very certain that TSH, so long as you were in the normal range, so long as you were taking a levothyroxine medication like Synthroid, that you should be symptom-free. Anything else should not be attributed to a thyroid problem. Well, what's fascinating is Dr. Bianco published a new book recently, and I've been watching all his various interviews, and it's fascinating to me that he estimates that about 15% of hypothyroid people taking levothyroxine medication with normal TSH have lingering symptoms. Now, I believe that the 1.5 million people following me are that 15%. And I am one of those 15% that the medication did not work perfectly within the range. We can't figure out why do we still have these lingering symptoms. So there are other issues that are beyond the scope of this particular presentation, but there's one that I want to talk about that I find the most common and the simplest to address. And that is that in order for us to use the thyroid hormone in our thyroid medicine, it has to cross the small intestinal wall. So it's coming down through the stomach. In the stomach, you need to have a certain amount of stomach acid to start disintegrating your levothyroxine. So let's just say you're taking Synthroid, because I know there are many different brands and there are generics, but let's just talk about one so that we can just sort of speak about, but we mean it for all of the various options, right? So the Synthroid is swallowed, it's in the stomach. Well, do you know that you need enough stomach acid in order to start dissolving that pill? Well, what if you have low stomach acid? What if you're taking a proton pump inhibitor or antacids for acid reflux? Are you then having substantial stomach acid to disintegrate that pill and break it down? Then in order for your body, in order for it to reach every cell all over your body, it has to absorb across that small intestinal wall. That wall has transporters across it to bring the thyroid hormone across into the blood vessels that then carry the thyroid hormone everywhere where you need it. Well, guess what? They're discovering that there are things as simple as the foods we eat, the drinks we drink, the medications we take, the supplements we take. If we take them too close together to our thyroid pill, that it interferes either one with the transporters, so making it impossible for the thyroid hormone to get across, or that it binds to the thyroid pill, making it too large a complex to absorb across. Now, that baffles the mind to me, because the number of people that come to me and that tell me they have lingering symptoms and they have well-documented gastrointestinal medical conditions like celiac disease, ulcerative colitis, stomach ulcers, all kinds of different gastrointestinal conditions that now we understand that they may need more thyroid medicine than is normally prescribed. Because you see, the way it's normally figured out is TSH is as long as you're in the range, but it's also about your body weight. So depending on your body weight, look at the TSH and they calculate it, and there's this magical number of what dose we need to take. Well, did you know that researchers have found over and over and over again that people with gastrointestinal issues need a higher dose of thyroid medicine than is normal? So if we're going by those calculations, we might be missing people that just can't absorb it across that small intestine. So what are some of the things to think about? Whenever, if you go to a pharmacy and you pick up your thyroid pill, I hope that they tell you, they take it in the morning with a glass of water and keep it away from foods. Okay, so I recall, like if I think back, I think I recall a pharmacist telling me this, but I don't really remember it. Like again, I should have asked for more detail and I did not. This topic is so serious that the Endocrine Society, which is recognized by the endocrine groups all over the world in 2017, issued a press release about the interference with cow's milk. How many people are drinking down their pill with a glass of milk, or with their coffee that has milk in it, or with their yogurt, or some other product that has calcium dairy in it? So it's so serious that a press release was issued, but who found out about this press release? All I know is that my followers have no idea about the press release. So the sad part is that the information is coming out, but if the patients aren't receiving it, then what good is the press release, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So I hope, a webinar like this brings that to people's attention. So I want to zoom into Synthroid for just a moment. Now, each maker, each brand maker, each generic maker, they have to include full prescribing information with their medication. When you buy it at the pharmacy, you get a little leaflet in small fine print. I encourage you, go get a magnifying glass and read your fine print. The fine print is so important, I can't even tell you. So this is an excerpt from the Synthroid by AbbVie, and I want to point out what it says in particular sections of their full prescribing information. So what interacts with their product? Soybean flour, cottonseed meal, walnuts. Who would have thought like that one there? It's fascinating. Dietary fiber, right? They all impact the absorption of Synthroid. What about grapefruit juice? Did you know that grapefruit juice interferes with a lot of other medications, not just Synthroid? And here we are drinking juices. Well, guess what? I discovered research about papaya juice and apple juice and orange juice. How many of us are drinking it with juice and you wouldn't even think, because it's juice. Wouldn't you think that healthy vitamin C juice might be a good thing? But it's so much so that Synthroid has included it right on their full prescribing information. Also, they say, administer Synthroid as a single daily dose on an empty stomach, 1/2 to 1 hour before breakfast. Now, this is fascinating to me because I I protect my thyroid medicine. This is like a sacred time. I do not go 1/2 hour. I do at least 1 hour. At least the experts that I have met, they all say at least 1 hour, if not more, to separate the timing when you take your pill with when you drink anything other than water or you eat anything. So, I mean, that's a pretty big thing that I wish I had known. Coffee. Whenever I survey my followers, how do you take your thyroid pill? Sure enough, someone says espresso drip coffee, barley coffee, black tea, some herbal teas. Well, the research is coming out one by one. It started in 2008. And when I first read it, when I first started Hypothyroid Mom in 2012, I read it and I went, boy, I'm taking my thyroid pill with my coffee. I have to stop doing this. Well, guess what? My levels all started improving. My levels started, something as simple as separating my coffee from my thyroid pill. And all of a sudden, the dose I was receiving was now having the effect. And now my levels were going into the range, and doctors were wondering, why can't this woman take this pill and get better? And just separating it from my food, and especially in my case, my coffee, because I was swallowing it with coffee. Now, what's interesting here is that initially I assumed that the reason the coffee was the issue is because of the milk we're putting in it. Because remember, the calcium, the cow's milk has been well documented now for a long time, for decades. But in 2008, they found that the coffee alone, without sugar, without milk, was interfering. Then now research is coming out about drip coffee, barley coffee, black tea, and some herbal teas. Now you would say to yourself, what about decaf? Well, guess what? They think that the coffee makes your gut, the motility faster. So you sort of, when you have to go to the bathroom right away after you drink a cup of coffee, so you faster gut motility. So the idea is, okay, well, that means your thyroid pill doesn't have enough time to be absorbed because it's like coming out really fast. But then they're realizing that decaf coffee does it too. It's not just the caffeine, that there might be some other component in the coffee that's not well understood yet, or in the black tea that's actually binding to the thyroid pill, making it impossible for it to cross the gut lining. So something as simple as separating your coffee. So timing window. This is where I think everything gets really fascinating. So the Synthroid website advises taking thyroid medicine 4 hours before or after taking iron supplements and multivitamins and prenatal vitamins that contain iron. The same goes for calcium. So it's been decades that the endocrine societies have been known about the interference with calcium and iron. But calcium and iron are also in multivitamins. They're also in prenatal vitamins. We have calcium fortified orange juice and iron fortified cereals. So the iron is actually interfering. And this has been and imagine they're saying 4 hours apart. It's not even enough for 1 hour. So they're advising any multivitamin, any prenatal vitamin that contains iron or calcium, and I've also heard the same with chromium, that it needs to be 4 hours apart as the general rule of thumb. But you would talk to your doctor and say, this is when I take my supplements with my pills. How many hours should I separate? You ask your doctor, ask the pharmacist. These are just general rules, of course, and everyone is different. So it's important that you ask your pharmacist and your doctor. Now, what I find really fascinating is other prescription medicines. This includes not just prescription medicines, but over-the-counter medicines. Now, I was going to make a slide of them, but I thought, oh boy, this slide is going to be so long. So I just want to say a few of them because I want you to really, really think about how important it is if you're taking other prescription medicines. And by the way, many hypothyroid people, as a result of it affecting every part of your body, often have other health conditions that may either be associated with it or completely separate. So you more than likely have a drawer full of prescription medicines, or at least that's the people that follow me. So are you taking insulin, metformin, warfarin, and forgive me if I mispronounce some of these? Are you taking any estrogen, bioidentical hormones, or testosterone, or digoxin, or Tums or Mylanta that have calcium in them? Or bile acid sequestrates, or laxatives, or calcium citrate, or ciprofloxacin. Oh my goodness, beta blockers, tricyclic antidepressants, proton pump inhibitors, statin drugs. I mean, the list is long of prescription medications that are known to interfere. So I always ask, the beauty of Hypothyroid Mom, if if you had to say, what was the best thing that's happened to me as a result of Hypothyroid Mom? It's the number of thyroid experts I get to meet on a daily basis. I get to pick their brains. I feel like $1,000,000. If you had to compare me to when I was severely hypothyroid, I thank goodness every day that I have met these incredible experts. And when I always ask about the timing window about these particular medicines and their interaction, and they tell me to separate them at least 4 to 6 hours, and that some of them, you need to even separate them 1 in the morning and 1 in the night. So the seriousness of the medicines, if I had to say where you really have to initiate a dialogue with your doctor and your pharmacy, because I think the pharmacists are the ones that can do an in-depth about, bring all your bottles, bring them all, and say, I need to know, when am I taking what? Please assist me in timing. And I think timing is like the most important thing of all. So why do I have a moon? So it's a fascinating thing. So many of my followers, everything has changed since they started taking their thyroid pill at night before bed. So research came out a few years ago, and I published it on Hypothyroid Mom, and I said, look at this. They're finding that people feel better and their levels are better when they take their thyroid pill at night. And they were rationalizing that the reason this was happening is because so many people that were taking it in the morning were taking their breakfast or their coffee or their juice at the same time, interfering again with the absorption. But if you take it at night, then you got all these hours before you have breakfast, and assuming, of course, that you're taking, you're going to bed several hours after your dinner, because then, of course, dinner can interfere with it too, right? So this is assuming you're eating your dinner, 6, 7 o'clock, going to bed around 10 or 11. For the most part, you're separating your pill from thyroid foods that are known to interact in drinks, right? So I can't tell you the number of people that have thanked me for publishing the information about the studies that have come out about bedtime use. And so much so that, press releases are coming out about it. I'm going to tell you another thing that people tell me about. I personally can't. And I'm going to, everybody is so different, right? I can't take mine before bed. I get too hyper. I am not able to sleep. So this does not work for me, but it works for a whole lot of people. If you change how you take your thyroid medicine, you must talk to your doctor, because something as simple as taking it before bed instead of the morning can dramatically change your thyroid levels, to the point that people can start feeling over medicated on the dosage that they're currently taking, because all of a sudden the bloodstream is getting the thyroid hormone that it wasn't getting before. And now you might even need a reduction in your thyroid medicine. This is why it's so important to talk to your doctor whenever you make changes like this. One quick thing about that. Other people tell me that what they do is, if they naturally wake to go to the bathroom, early in the morning, like there are a lot of people that will wake up at 2, 3 o'clock their body, they have insomnia, they're just naturally waking up to go to the bathroom. And what they do is they put their thyroid pill beside their bed and they take it when they do that waking. So that's several hours. So by the time then they wake up, that's several hours, and now they can drink their coffee and have their breakfast. And a lot of people love to do it that way as well. So, wow, that was like a mouthful. So Hypothyroid Mom, I started in 2012. It's 10 years. I can't believe it's 10 years. If you haven't followed the Hypothyroid Mom Facebook page, I hope you will. There are 1.2 million people there. The interaction, if you want to ask questions, you just put a comment. You'd be shocked at how many people that are in your situation will answer your question. I have worked so hard to keep the spammers off it, to keep the sellers off it. I'm so proud of my page. It is a very kind, supportive environment where people in the same environment, going through the same experience, can ask each other questions. They don't feel they're afraid to be laughed at for a question maybe that they think they should know. We're all there. We're all learning. So I encourage you to come. Now, I wanted to make sure to leave time for questions, and there's so much more I could say, but I'm going to stop at this point. And if you could assist me with organizing the questions. Otherwise, there are other topics I'd be happy to talk about. So, but let's first see if anyone has questions about what we talked about.
Thank you so much, Dana. So if everyone wants to either put your questions in the chat, or you can put your hand up and I will unmute you if you want to read your question out loud. We are currently recording, but we don't have to, especially again, if we start talking about some personal things that we don't want to be recorded, okay?
And I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I think that might be better. Okay, there we go. Great.
And actually, I am just going to go ahead and turn the recording off. So to all of our viewers
that way people feel private.
So to all of our viewers on YouTube, thank you so much. And I'm going to be stopping the recording now.